all over the place and wearing, those glasses with like fake nose and mustache and fake eyebrows, and he's flying under the radar. Val, if you're out there and you're safe, let us know. Send us a message.
Do you know what? I'm going to let the world know that I met Val for the first time last week. And in his pictures and on his podcast, his camera's a little bit high. In person, the guy has done a lot of bench press. He's a very big guy.
Maybe that's what he's doing now. He's like doing like 4,000 push-ups.
He didn't do his bench press for the morning.
Yeah,
he's eating lots of protein. He's not doing the shakes, but he's previously done, for those that don't know, he's previously done white collar MMA, and I think he wants to do another one for charity. He did it for charity last time.
I've got to ask,
isn't that just sales
I know
meetings?
what MMA is. What is white collar MMA?
Sales meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one version, one definition. The other definition is people that basically work in offices and don't do it for a living, type thing. Go and do MMA, an MMA fight. They train, they get taught, and they have a charity fight and they raise money. So that's what he did last year, and apparently almost broke his arm. But he's Australian, so what's to believe? He said he's going to turn up. It's episode 6. He still hasn't yet, so we'll still give him grief for not turning up. But let's
but I think there's a new Japanese anime on Netflix about white collar MMA. So people resolve business disputes in a ring, and it is. I haven't watched it yet.
That'd actually be quite a lot of fun.
I know, right? But by this account, I've now put my name on the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm just never going to show up. What podcast are you going to go to, Dale?
There's a few out there. Tim Ferriss. I'll go Tim Ferriss. Actually, no. Stephen Bartlett, Diary of the CEO.
Nice. Greg?
I would go for a Jordan Peterson one. Purely because I'd want to be like just poking and pushing and being like, I want to learn something here.
Yes. Yeah.
But we're not supposed to show, right? That's the idea.
Yeah. I mean, you can put your name on anything if you don't show up.
Okay.
Right?
No, I'd probably have to show up.
Edit the graphics and repost them with your name and your face on them. Done.
Perfect. Let's do it. Right, gents, we don't have a lot of time, so let's get to the topic. Again, for those that haven't listened to previous episodes, everything we try and do is use generative AI to showcase what it can and can't do, because it can't do everything. And it can do a lot of things that people don't know about. So this one it generated was actually quite apt. Episode 6 is all about, it's given us a title of Tech Talk and Tinfoil Hats, AI Myths. So there's a lot of myths out there about AI, and not least, whose jobs it might replace and whose jobs it may not. And I think if we bring it back to the context of what we're talking about, primarily it's in the construction industry, construction mega projects, construction landscape, I guess. But a lot of what we say can be transferred and translated into other sectors as well. So, Al, since you were absent for the last one because you were gallivanting on the outside of the world, do you want to start? What are some of the myths that you've come across, that you've read on LinkedIn, that people have come at you at? And,
the best ones are either very, very wild on the right-hand side or very, very wild on the left-hand side. So you have like, AI is going to replace everybody tomorrow. Run for the pitchforks and set fire to everything, and let's unionize against AI. Like that's basically what actors did. And I get the point. They're like, okay, like, we want our image protected, I guess, from the actor's perspective. And we want to keep making loads of money from the actor's perspective. The only one that I do kind of sympathize with is writers, right? At least for now. And so that feels extreme on one side, because like even if you look at Sora, right, it can generate a few seconds of video, and that demo is the best 5 that they generated out of probably 100 or maybe 1,000 that they went through and selected the best ones to make a video, right? It's kind of like all the Gemini demos as well. You're like, okay, this looks great, but how many things did you try before you got here? Which isn't to say it's not useful, right? So like you go other side of the spectrum, you see myths like, yeah, AI will never replace human creativity at all. And I'm like, like you can write a decent script, and I can write a decent report, and I can write a decent number of things just using ChatGPT, right? Like the case in point, I'm one of the advisory boards for Innovate UK, and the number of grant applications basically grew, I don't know, like 20x or something like that. There was a number, I can't remember what it was, but like it was more than an order of magnitude on grant applications, and they all look great now.
Yeah,
because you can get an LLM to write them. And so there's a lot of things that are being replaced that people may be a little bit in denial of, and all you have to do is look for someone who claims to be an AI expert and has done nothing about AI in their entire life to find some of the wild claims.
It's similar to, I guess, if you don't vote and then you comment on how the country's been run, perhaps.
Yes.
Or not done any research and then vote just blindly and have your say. So I think you're right. There are a lot of myths, particularly from those that have a loud voice, whether that's social media's fault or not, who knows. But people that are actively out there suggesting things that come across as fact, but perhaps are fiction. So how do we demystify that? So that's the one thing is job displacement, I guess. Greg, are there any that sort of popped to the top of the surface for you that you've seen lately and gone, that is just
absolutely
wrong?
Well, it kind of builds on Alan's point, which is people who have incredibly strong opinions about things that they are uninformed of. And it's clear that it's a post-rationalization of a feeling that they have, as opposed to the output of a logical analysis that they've done based on the facts. And the clear one of these that I see is, to Alan's point, is things like, AI will never do this. I don't know what AI will do. Alan, you're even more informed than me. You don't know what it will do. So to say that something of which you are uninformed and you haven't defined precisely is not going to do something at some point at an undefined time in the future, I'm kind of like, you're talking out your ass, if I'm honest. You're talking out your ass. You have no idea what you're talking about. All I'd say this is that AI is clearly able to do things that are emotionally surprising to us, and that most people haven't. It's not that they didn't think it would happen. I think that most people hadn't considered it as a possibility, so they never thought about it. That's the surprise. I've never thought about this, but it's just happened. So it's almost like, imagine if spaceships just came down and started flying through the sky. It'd be shocking because we never thought that that's a thing that could be done. But once they're here, you get used to it pretty quickly. And then, someone going, oh, do you think you'll have a spaceship that goes from London to New York? It's not far-fetched anymore. I'd probably say that this is the biggest category. When I've had a long day and I kind of want a little bit of, as my wife call it, mind-numbing scrolling, I'll actually go on LinkedIn and I'll look to all the people who have a lot of strong opinions. And every reply, it just makes me laugh quite a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of comedy out there, Al, and bringing you back in, because I know you wanted to comment on that, because if we base on what you were saying about Sora, it is amazing, the clips that they did put out there. And maybe it is the beginning, but they do, based on that, it'll only get better, and who knows where it'll lead. And I think where we are now, current status, and challenge me and correct me if I'm wrong, chaps, because we got feedback on the last episode that Greg and I agreed too much. So let's have a bit of discourse and debate here. I think where we are now with AI, it gives you outcomes with more accuracy. It can predict what may happen, but it isn't at a stage where it predicts what will happen. So that's sort of, I'm going to put that out there. No, humans aren't either. But I mean, if we just talk about AI and we try and look for the crystal ball, right, and say that if we're busting myths, right? There are certain people that think AI can predict what will happen, and
I like the way of thinking. So there's a YouTube channel. I would advise anyone who's even mildly interested in actually learning things about AI and how machine learning works. It's called 2-Minute Papers. I think the guy publishes like not a video a day, but a lot. And it's literally a 2-minute video about any new paper that comes out. And his typical sign off is a reflection along the fact that, you know, this is the first paper in this and look at how good it is. Think at what things are going to look like 3 research papers down the line, right? So if you look at generating images in 2019, when we were using GANs, you had like, you know, 64 by 64 pixel images that looked terrible, also because they were 64 by 64 pixels. And the generative part was so bad that you had to have a discriminator network on top of it just to have something that looks like a face if you're trying to generate a face. And you had to train a model just to generate specific things, right? You didn't give it a prompt. And that's like, you know, 3 years. And it's, I mean, less than 3 years, right? Like Stable Diffusion is more like 2021. It turned everything on its head because, you know, you are like, well, a little bit more than 3, but a number of research papers down the line. And if you ask someone who was working on GANs at the time, like, how long is it going to take to get to this level of quality? They would have said, oh, yeah, it's going to take 5 years, 10 years, right? And that's usually the statement because we forget the fact that there's a lot of investment that's going into research and, you know, what's going to happen 4 research papers down the line, right? So like, now we've got Gemini with 1 million tokens. That means that you can throw an entire code base in there and ask it to edit the code base directly without having to do anything fancy with retrieval. They're working on a 10 million token model. So what's going to, you know, what's Gemini 3 instead of 1.5? What's GPT-7 going to look like in terms of, you know, when you have, you know, 1 billion tokens of context? What do you do then, right? What's the difference between what we have now? And I think we forget to project forward just because, and I think, you know, there's this saying of any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think for most of us, you know, in some cases, me included, because I mean, I have a little bit of, you know, some publications on Stable Diffusion, but it's not really something that I know deeply. Like a lot of these image and video generation look like magic to me, right? So like, how can you then project forward? This magic is going to get better, and the next version of magic will be able to do these things because it's still magic at this point to anyone who's not clued in. Like, and on many things, I include myself, right? LLM's a little bit less, and, you know, traditional ML a lot less, but it is very hard to project forward accurately if you're not thinking about what are the next evolutions of the thing technically. You know, so are we going to use transformers in 5 years time? I really hope not. There's going to be something else, right? And like there are some things that are starting to emerge now to replace transformers too. Sorry, I went on a long rant as usual.
No, we love it. We love it. Greg, come on, what are your views? Can you give Al a bit of debate there for the listeners? Give the people what they want.
Well, I was trying to think throughout that, like, what do I disagree with? But it's factually based, so do you know what? My feelings don't care about your facts, Alan.
But yeah, I mean, like, obviously, like, this is an emotionally difficult journey, right?
Well, actually, that was going to be my point, which is there's the fact of what happens, and what I've seen, and including in myself, is that of things that are material to us as individuals, so either to our self-identity or our position within the world, we crave feeling powerful, and feeling powerful means having control of those elements. Here, if it was a fringe thing that didn't impact on people's future lives, people wouldn't care. There are many things that people do not care about right now that arguably they probably should, but people emotionally don't care. But this is something that has impacted people's lives, and therefore they do care. And here's the thing, and here's the kind of the practicality at the heart of it. Unless you are sitting in Silicon Valley and you are one of the executives in the venture capital firms funding these companies or the actual companies themselves, you have very, very little control over this situation. So
I would argue the VCs don't either, but
we could. I'm not going
if you
down
want
that
some
route,
controversy, right there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And what I'd say here is this is actually the most difficult thing, which is people kind of coming to accept that it almost doesn't matter what we say today. And it also doesn't matter what they think. The world will evolve how the world will evolve. And in general, they have no power to control it. And it will impact their lives in some way. And actually, the key thing here is I would actually say it's to have an anti-opinion. Here, I'd say we do not need to have any opinions on AI. What my advice to like my family and friends would be is to keep a lookout and to be creative and opportunistic and positive. People can sit there going, you take jobs and do this and do that. Short-term thinking. I'd be like, when I see something, how do I make the most of it? How do I make the most opportunity with it? Knowing full well that it is a temporary endeavor. And as Alan, you were saying, better things will come out and things will change and do all of this kind of stuff. I think that's probably the contrarian view here is our opinions don't count.
Unless you're in control, yeah.
I'm gonna throw a statement out there.
Go for it.
See if you guys bite. So all of this, I'm a project director, project controls manager. All of this AI and these tools and techs in project management, they're not going to change. They're not going to improve the way we deliver projects. They're just black box and they don't work.
Cool. My position, my general position to that would be, cool, if that's your opinion, that's your opinion. I hope you don't come across a bid with someone who doesn't have that opinion. Because if you come across a bid where someone has spent 12 months going, actually, I don't know, so let's experiment, and that person has managed to increase their productivity by 200%, and you're bidding against that person, and you're going in going, oh, we need this contingency, and wow, it's basically a guess, and they're going, well, we've calculated it. You're going to lose. And then, for some reason, the 20 years of winning you've had will suddenly become 20 years of losing, and you'll probably just retire.
Yeah. And okay, I'm going to continue in that persona. So I want to see the evidence that this all works.
And again, I'm being hard here. It is not for other people to prove to you that something in the world exists or not. It is on you to do the work for yourself. Like, maybe if someone desperately wants a job for you who is very informed in this stuff, that you can obviously hire and request that they do that. But, think about it this way. Would you rather work with someone who goes, oh, prove this to me, versus someone who goes, I'm very interested. I'd love to work with you to understand what we can do in this sense. Go on, Alan.
I mean, obviously, all of this narrative changes if you're in a sales meeting, by the way, Greg.
Of course. Yeah, of course. I'm doing this from a podcast and an open.
Then you have to convince them. But I honestly, I agree. It's not on, in a sense, even it's not on OpenAI to convince people that GPT-4 works and it can do things, right? Or that ChatGPT can do things, or on Google that Gemini can do things, or Anthropic that Claude can do things, right? It doesn't matter which one you choose. It is on us to accept as individuals that a large part of everything that we do, and remember this, right? In the 60s, it was a wildly accepted or generally accepted prediction that by this time we'd be doing max 4 hours of work every week because everything would get automated. And instead, we have built ourselves a world in which we love making PowerPoints and changing the color of a slide, right? Which in the grand scheme of things is completely futile. And I'm sorry for the PowerPoint designers out there. I know that making things that look pretty is nice, but if you're making a report, you just need the words and maybe the visualizations and the charts, right? And like some structure. You don't need it to be fancy. So even these things are things that like it's busy work in a sense that we've created for ourselves, right? As humans, and there's lots of different versions of this. And I don't know how much time each of you spends in meetings, but it's a lot usually. And that is true probably for everyone listening. And how many times have you sat there and thought, this meeting didn't need to be a meeting. It could have been an email. It probably didn't even need to be an email because nobody cares, right? I think that is the attack surface. And it's on us to realize, and as individuals, that all of the stuff that we've created for ourselves that is keeping us busy because we need to prove our self-worth, right? You could very easily do, I think, 80% of your job in 20% of the time, right? There's like very much a Pareto distribution there, and the rest is checking your email. So all these things, it's on us to accept that this is where the big change is going to happen, right? And so as a society, etc., like, do we want to actually go down to like, we work 20% of the time, do 80% of our job? It'd be amazing. I could do with an extra 4 days a week of being free.
Do you know what? This is the point where I'm actually going to find a challenge. I'm going to find a challenge here. Yeah. I actually agree, and I think that'd be a wonderful world. The problem is that we, at least the three of us, live in capitalist societies. And capitalist societies always move the bar. So if you actually look at the productivity of achievement like 50 years ago versus the productivity of achievement today, essentially, if once automation comes in and enables us to save time, someone will come in and go, well, we can use that time to essentially make more money.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
And they'll just constantly push out. I do think I agree with you. I actually, if you kind of look at the data on farming, we were at the point where we could probably do 2-3 days a week of work decades ago.
Yeah.
Because if you actually think, all we need is good housing, food, medicine, this kind of thing, and we were there a while ago. You're right. We've created this entire. It is true. There is busy work for busy work's sake, and you almost ask some companies of why you make people work 40 hours a week as opposed to do these things and you can go. Yeah.
I love it. And I think the listeners, or that one listener that commented, we have one listener, guys. We have one listener.
Nice.
The one listener that did comment.
Can we send him some like branded stuff?
Yeah, we should
some merch.
We should get
him
some
or her.
merch. Actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think it was a man. So as we promised, we'll use generative AI for a lot of things we do. I've literally just typed into ChatGPT. Give me 10 AI myths. The first one: AI can fully replicate human intelligence.
Depends on the human. Really? Yes. Like, yeah. There's a couple of people I think are they've had their days numbered, if I'm honest.
The other one, which we've covered, AI will lead to massive job losses, and I think we've spoken about this a few times, especially also on previous episodes on this on the Gen AI podcast. So we won't cover that one again. AI is infallible and unbiased. I think this leads on from our hallucination episode a couple of episodes ago, Alan. But
I really don't think it's a myth. I don't think anybody believes that, though.
Yeah.
Does anybody believe that?
I don't know. There might be some people out there. I mean, we did speak previously about the flying spaghetti monster.
I'm gonna be a philosopher here. It depends on which ground truth that you're looking through the lens of.
Ah.
Yeah.
Depends on the person coding it. But then again, hallucinations.
To Alan's point a couple of episodes ago, to the AI, it's as true can be, because that's the world it believes that it lives in.
Sure.
So it's its own myth.
Yeah, there are
that nobody else holds.
There are humans who think the Earth is flat. So I will go with some people believe some stuff.
Yeah.
Fair.
Number 4 is AI can fully understand and interpret human emotions.
Oh. Again, not true. But how many people actually believe that? I think emotions expressed as language in language models typically do get an appropriate reaction because of all the safety training, etc., right? And alignment.
If we were to go all Elon Musk and have a chip implanted in our heads and all that type of thing, and emotions are based on hormones and chemical reactions in your body, could that then potentially pick up your emotional state?
Yeah. Right. And very like particular emotions correspond to particular brain activity, right? So you can kind of, I know it's not really practical right now, but if you had a portable MRI machine on your head all the time and you connect that to an ML model, you should be able to detect someone's emotional state with pretty good granularity at any given point.
Yeah, there's a difference between can we and should we, right?
Yeah, we sure. Can we, should we? Maybe we've digressed a little bit from the myths.
Yeah. I think the key part of the myth there is it's kind of identify and understand, and I think this is one where understand is a sandy
loaded
beach.
Word.
Yeah, it's a loaded word. It's like you're gonna have to define that for me. Like, does understand mean be able to estimate the hormonal levels within a specific body type, or does it mean predict the action that one is going to take? Or I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And then you'd start descending into like creepy surveillance kind of stuff, right? Like, facial detection to detect for the emotional state of someone walking into a school.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Number 5, AI will eventually surpass human intelligence and become autonomous. Skynet, anyone? Matrix?
Depends what you define as intelligence.
Yeah.
Alan, you'll probably agree, 100% it's already done it on some elements of intelligence.
Yeah.
Like, for example, its speed of learning. There's likely no human that can keep up with some of the more modern AI models when they're given enough processing power.
Ability to generalize around as well, right? Zero-shot learning is something that humans are not as good at, right? It's like actually part of what intelligence tests are built around is sort of like zero-shot learning from image patterns in a sense. So I think I agree. Like in some points, it has surpassed human intelligence. We have this belief, right? And it's not just capitalism, but humans keep moving the bar, right? Yeah. It used to be, when a computer can beat a human at chess, and that's impossible. And then it became when a computer can beat a human at Go, and that's impossible. And now it's like when it was the Turing test, right? When you can converse with a machine and not be able to distinguish it from a human, which is like with the right prompts, you can actually probably easily fool anyone, right? That's what most scams are based on now, is literally passing the Turing test. So now kind of the bar is at creativity. So there's this thing that like, you can generate things pretty well, but it's not creative because it doesn't come up with the idea. You still have to come up with the idea. There's probably going to be a mechanism for it at some point, right?
You and I know that we can hack a system together that can basically do that now. You just get one AI to talk to another AI.
Yeah, I know, right? Like you start talking about like multi-agent systems, that kind of stuff. I mean, technically it's not one AI anymore, right? So like it's a swarm, but swarm intelligence is a whole different topic.
Well, that leads actually well into the next one, number 6. All AI is similar. Because a lot of people think that don't understand it. They go, all AI is the same.
Well, actually, yes. Alan, it depends on the frame you look at it. It does technically depend on the frame you look at it.
I get that a lot. I get that a lot now, where we do some ML and some LLMs and some other stuff, and then we show the LLM based stuff. It's like, oh, so that's the AI. It's like, no, it's all the whole other thing that's under the hood that's doing the other stuff as well. But there's a very strong association now with AI is LLMs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of time we fall into that trap, mostly because it's like, center in front of everybody's mind. But there's a lot of other things that are also part of the group.
So I want to pick on that point, because those two myths go together quite nicely about, if you actually consider, it's to your point of we keep moving the bar, and it's because what I call the generalized person can't articulate what intelligence is, or more specifically, what is human and what is not when it comes to looking at intelligence. From my experience, it comes down to fit. So the ability to take an input in the real world and then process it and come up with a conclusion and action that in the real world. In some instances, you're doing mathematics. In others, you're trying to dodge lions. In others, you're trying to emotionally read your child. Like, there's very many instances on this. And just like there's many instances that humans can deal with, and actually I think that's the core bit, is the breadth. To your point, Alan, where people started logically and were like, if it can beat chess, if it can beat Go, those are logical, probability-based games. And now it's going into creativity, and they're like, oh, well, that's a creation. And, it's actually about the spectrum of activities that it can surpass. And this is obviously where you get into IQ, EQ, AQ, all of those. But to this point about all AI being the same, well, actually, I then ask the question, mentally, are all humans the same? Theoretically, unless something's gone wrong, we've got the same ability to develop the machinery to address the same challenges in the natural world. Some better than others on specific elements. Some people are better at maths. Some people are better at reading people. But my question here would be, is the definition of human the general ability to deal with the spectrum? And therefore, is the definition of AI eventually going to be the general ability to deal with the spectrum?
Yeah, I honestly,
at which point all AI would be the same in this definition.
There's at least 50-year-old, actually probably more 100 years old now, maybe even longer, battle with within psychometrics, right, on the definition of what is intelligence. Because we all talk about IQ as if it's something that is generally accepted what it is, and that isn't even the case, right? So like we can't define what intelligence is for humans. Like the standard general accepted idea in the Western world is that you do a Cattell 3B test and you score in a percentile, and so if you're above a certain percentile, you get to join certain societies. But like, that's one measure, and we could probably build models that smash that, right? Because it's designed on like very specific patterns for very specific purposes. And it was supposed to be like a way of predicting a pupil's ability to succeed later in school, right? But does that mean that someone that doesn't do well in like a Cattell 3B is not intelligent in other ways? It doesn't, and there's like huge debates there. So we don't know what intelligence is. We can't define it. How on earth are we going to be able to define what artificial intelligence is and distinguishing it from artificial general intelligence and human intelligence? Like, we can't. We don't even know what I stands for, really.
No.
But I think you're right when you bring it back to human intelligence. So if you say all AI is similar, therefore you should say all human intelligence is similar, and we know it's not, right? And so I think we can safely, from that perspective, bust that myth, because it's not the same. Not all things are made equal. No. But I think it's a great one, because that is one that I think people think that don't understand. Yeah, it's all the same thing. Which does lead, and we've spoken about this a little bit actually, AI can solve all problems. Now, you talk to Alan, you probably say, yes, it can. You talk to Greg, he goes, depends. Depends what the problems are. I mean, all problems, can it solve all problems? Let's take love.
Let's actually go back. Let's actually go back to that core point and say, can human intelligence solve all problems? Well, I would actually argue that the problem set is infinite. And when you solve one problem, you emerge a new problem. Hopefully, that new problem is a better problem to solve than the old problem. So, for example, we have solved the problem of diseases killing babies. Now the problem is people live a long time.
Yep.
So I'd probably say that the problem spectrum is, it might not be infinite, but it is very, very difficult to bound. And without being able to bound something, you cannot then say, unless you had an infinitely scalable process, that anything can solve an unbounded system. Alan, would you agree?
I agree. I think you might want to rephrase the second problem statement. Humans live too long. I'm not sure I'd phrase it in that way.
Very true. No, I would like to say that humans are living longer, and that poses more societal problems.
Yes, fine.
I actually. So here's an interesting. I had a great debate the other day, which is, would you give up your ability to have children for the ability to live for 200 years?
Ooh.
But if you think about it, like,
that sounds like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yes.
Of course it is, that kind of thing.
Stick it into GPT-4, write it, put it into Sora, make the episode, and let's make $1 million. I think I can come up with two problems, one very small and one very large, that AI will never be able to solve. Not directly, right? One is, I have a cold right now. I hate it, right? Sure, like, drug discovery with AI is a thing, but it can't solve the problem that I have a cold right now.
Yeah,
but it can solve the problem that you hate it. It can
Maybe
deliver some very happy drugs into your arm.
Maybe, yeah. True, right? The one that nobody can solve, there's no amount of intelligence that can solve this one, is the heat death of the universe.
That is very true, actually.
That is
unless it can figure out the creation of energy from expansion, and then be able to solidify that to a point.
So it's a reignite, right? Like, I mean, there's sure.
Yeah,
I think
you're
you
right.
have to break physics
progression
first.
the progression of entropy, that is just the law, and no one. Yeah, that is
right.
Yeah,
we see that as a problem because it implies that people die and planets and solar systems end, and eventually everything will end, and someone will stop the simulation and eject the DVD or something. I don't know.
I'd actually really love for AI or just someone. This is now getting off. For people listening, I'm actually a physicist. Like, I studied cosmology. That's actually my passion. I would love for it just to tell me what dark energy is. Like, it's this weird property that, I'm going to break some rules here and overgeneralize, but it's this weird property that allows for concentration at low distances, which is essentially gravity, but creates expansion at large distances. And by the way, infinite creation of energy and matter. It breaks all the conservation laws. Don't know what it is. No one can tell me. And actually, we don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe some AI.
Well, I'll generalize your statement there, which is one of the current tests of, like, AI can't do this, is write original research papers that make sense. right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of money being invested in it because it's going to be very useful if all of a sudden you can have language models write papers that then prove to be true, and we make discoveries like that, right? That's also kind of like part of
the first physics discovery, the first major physics discovery, the first Nobel Prize that goes to an AI. That will be a moment where I'll be like, this is peak humanity. We've genuinely created something that has figured something out about the universe that we didn't know.
Yeah.
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 I can see that happening. I don't see that being too far away.
Well, can I bring us back down to earth?
Sorry.
No, it's great. I love it. But here's the other one that I'll throw into the mix. Love. A human emotion. Like love. Like, can it solve that?
The Greeks have 4 different words for love. You're going to have to define it more precisely.
Okay, let's take it on a partner level, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for a partner. You're looking for your, inverted commas, and I know the romantics out there will hate me for saying this, that it's inverted commas, your soulmate, right? That type of love. Can AI solve that? I don't think so.
What I mean, is it a problem to solve?
Well, I think for single, lonely people, yeah, I think it is. It's a big problem.
The problem there is I'm lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of solutions based on AI for that, but I don't think we should talk about them too much.
Well, Greg mentioned them on a few episodes back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would actually argue, Dale, that do you think that the matching algorithms on some of the what I would call the more detailed dating sites are not good predictors of the outcome that they want to achieve?
So I don't know, because I haven't looked at the data and I've never tried them. So I don't know the answer to that. I know a lot of people that are actually married today that have met on dating sites.
I do
and
too.
Others. But I also know a lot that it hasn't worked out and they were perfect matches. So I think it's a mixed bag based on the small sample of evidence I have. But I don't know the stats on that. I think I think the technology is a good way of meeting people. Do I think that the outcomes are the desired effect to solve the problem? I don't think it's a complete 100% yes or 100% no. I think it's, back to your point, Greg, it depends, which is the cop-out answer. But I think based on my evidence, it does really depend on other factors.
For me, it'd be the problem statement that you're trying to achieve here. So, for example, are you looking to find somebody for which you have complementary and contradictory, but in the positive, the stressful way, traits that has the probability of creating emotions of love, and then they've got obviously the different evolutions of love within a relationship and across time and across wants and needs? And I'd be like, which one of those are you trying to achieve? Can forget AI. It's like, can your friend or your a psychologist or something suggest something that you might want to do for your partner on your anniversary to generate feelings of love?
Yeah.
And as I think the three of us probably attest, because we all have children, love's not a 0 or 1 thing. Love is something that you invest in every single day, and it pays dividends.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm going to be a cynical guy here. I think a couple of things. So, like on matching, like every other algorithm or strategy, and I don't mean it in an AI sense, right? This could actually be like, what is your own strategy for dating, for example? Mm-hmm. It's going to have an accuracy and a success rate, which is never going to be 100%, right? And it's never going to be 100%. Because it doesn't matter how good your prediction is, there's always going to be a certain, very large actually, because we're talking about humans and human interactions, a very large amount of randomness, right? So I'm taking like a very pragmatic, cynical view here, because what we know about feelings of love and actually like general emotions towards people, they're all based on certain distribution of neurotransmitters, and patterns that repeat over time. So the more oxytocin you produce with someone, it's like The Sims back in the day was not that far off. We had like the little plus symbols and you get more and more attached, right? The more oxytocin you produce when in proximity or interacting with someone, the more you like them, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously there's like factors that multiply into that. And it's like, do you find that person attractive or not, et cetera, right? But there's a huge amount of randomness, right? If you meet someone and they're having a bad day and they didn't shower, you're probably not going to feel very attracted to them, even if they are like your perfect match, right? That is randomness, I guess. And because of that, I think solving for it is going to be very difficult. I don't think there is an actual solution. But also, you know, AIs don't have neurotransmitters, so they can't empathize with that. Right? They can simulate sympathy and empathy for it, and they can replicate things that others say, right? What do I do for my wife on her anniversary? And it will give you some ideas, and it'll only give you some ideas because somebody else said it, right? But it won't be able to know how your wife operates and simulate how her neurotransmitter is going to work, unless, you know, someone programs it in, and like then we get into like very creepy areas. But you still have a huge amount of randomness, right? Is she having a bad day? She's probably not going to like it. Or does she have some past experience with the thing that you bought her? Like maybe you're like, oh, I'm going to buy roses. Turns out that roses remind her of like some traumatic thing that happened in the past that she never told you about.
Yeah, exactly.
And you fucked up.
Exactly. But we don't want to end on that note. And
no.
I know we're heading towards the end of the pod. So I'm going to pick off one more and just a simple yes or no to bust the myth. And I think I know the answers from the two of you. But number 10 on the list was implementing AI is always expensive and complex. Yes or no?
What's your definition of implementing AI here? Like, does implementing AI mean use AI in your organization? Or does implementing AI mean I'm going to start building models?
Have a yes or no to either one of those.
First one, no. Second one, yes.
Greg,
more so on. Every day.
Greg's
sort of it is again. Well, these I think these myths are provocative because they are non-descriptive. Like they have sets that are wild in variation. To Alan's point, you could implement in very inverted commas AI today by just logging on the internet and saying, going to DALL-E and go create me a picture of a unicorn. You have implemented AI in some way.
Yeah.
Or you could go, I've got a very complex business problem that I'd like to solve, and it needs to follow the processes and procedures in the InfoSec of our organization. And I want a strategy of transformation that's a vast endeavor to undertake.
Yeah. But then you're also implementing organizational change more than you're implementing AI, right? In that
true. And to your point, you're right. It's like if you're building foundational models, that's going to get very, very expensive very quickly.
Yeah. I think even if,
but then again, it depends what expensive is, because to some people it's not expensive.
Yeah. What's your definition? Like, you know, like for me, $100 million is a lot. Maybe for some others, it's not.
Yeah, to some others, $100 million is another Tuesday, and they lost it in the sofa.
I actually think this is perfect because we spoke about getting merch, and for Greg's merch, Al, I think in the front of his shirt, it's got to have "It depends."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, people are asking very, very loaded questions. But
this is you're still going through the list, right? And this is, you know, this is stereotypical ChatGPT. It's had so much alignment and guardrails that anything that comes out of it is so broad and generic that your comment is always going to be, it depends.
Exactly. Well, look, folks, it's great to have you back, Al. I know you're struggling with a bit of lurgy as well, so well done for getting on the episode. Greg, it's always good to see you as well, and it was good to see you in person last week too. We have lots of fun on these. Hopefully, we've given the people what they want and had a bit more of a debate there. And we'll try and look for more contentious topics. But I think the key remains is that we want to give you perspective, we want to give you opinion and insight. We don't always want to agree with each other. Sometimes we inevitably will, just because that's our nature, and we do agree. We try and be open and transparent. But the biggest thing is that hopefully you learning from this, or we know that there's at least one listener, so thank you for listening to us. But till next time, thank you very much for joining us for this discussion, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you.